G'day everyone, my name's Hayden from the New South Wales Department of Primary Industries. I'm the Cotton Research Agronomist based here in Yanco, and today I'm just going to give you a quick summary of our planting date by variety trial that we had in place this last season. So here are our treatments. There are a range of planting dates from late September through to early November. That early November was a sort of plant date thrown in there to simulate a replant scenario pushed really late, and they were compared against all current commercial varieties. So looking at the day degree accumulation for each of the planting dates here, we can see that the later plant dates more quickly accumulated day degrees as a result of establishing in more favourable conditions. I'd like to point out here that the late planting date of 8th November failed to reach that 2000 day degree target to successfully mature cotton in the south. To touch on the amount of plants we established this past season, across all varieties and treatments, we averaged 14.8 plants per metre. We really had no issues establishing cotton in the seasonal conditions last year. And this is similar to Hannah Hartnett's work, where planted under optimum conditions, each variety sort of responds the same in terms of establishment percentage. And so looking at the phenology of the crop, on this graph on the left here is showing day degree accumulation for first square and first flower average across all varieties for each planting date. And shown there with it is that dotted line, which is the adjusted target. For example, the 505 day degree target to get to first square is adjusted for cold shock days experienced leading up until that time. So you can see for the first two plant dates, they track nicely in line with that target. They deviate a little bit from it, but they follow the same trend. For the last two plant dates, they really slip away from that target and take longer to get there than the first two planting dates. So this sort of backs up that the base 12 day degree model falls away a bit here in the south, especially when cotton is planted a bit later. So it'll be interesting to see the base 15 day degree model when it is was released very soon. So the length of flowering period is solely dependent on planting date here in the south. We chose a cutout date early February to try and knock our cotton on the head. It was going along pretty smoothly and didn't really want to pull up, and had to give it a second cutout rate, which was on the 22nd of February. So really the length of flowering here is obviously greater in the earlier plant dates and tapers off with the later plant dates with that finite date of cutout. So looking at the biomass and sort of relating this to McBanger's work previously, the first square and first flower biomass accumulation was higher in the later plant dates. So this is averaged across all varieties. There was no varietal response picked up in this. It was more focused on planting date alone. And so comparing that to defoliation and looking at that first day degree accumulation graph that I showed you, where the last planting date or that replant date in early November fell away and didn't reach that 2000 day degree target we're sort of chasing down here, is reflected in that defoliation biomass, and it sort of fell away in the end. So having a quick look at the yield components, Cyclot 707 and 714 had the least number of veggie branches and the lowest first fruiting branch, and this is because of their determinate nature. 748 being the opposite, obviously had the opposite effect and had the most veggie branches and the highest first fruiting branch. of all varieties. So boll number is not significant between varieties and was only at the plant date level, and saw the most bolls present on the earlier planting dates, and the 8th of November plant had significantly less bolls than other treatments. So looking at the yields, the highest yields are achieved from the earliest plant date, being 26th September, and average 14 bales a hectare at this time. All varieties perform quite similarly at this time. Moving to the 10th of October plant, we yielded on average 90% of the first plant date, with Slycott 707 and 714 standing out and comparable with the yields achieved in the first planting date. So on average, 23rd of October plant date yielded 78% of the early plant date, again with the more determinate varieties performing the best in this season. The 8th of November replant scenario yielded poorly at just 36% of the 14 bales hectare seen in the early plant date. So having a look at the micronair, this last season was the year for seeing pretty bad discounts on micronair. 707 and 714 were the only varieties that were not downgraded on mic when planted in the 26th of September. And so these two guys here, being determinate in nature, really were the best this season in terms of maturing and cutting themselves out and having enough time to finish and pick quality cotton. All other treatments and the time of sowing or variety received a discount this last season. So to wrap things up, last year was the year to plant early with optimal planting conditions. Remember to always sort of rely on the CSD planting guides to help make planting decisions. They're the best protocol we have at getting crop in the ground and getting it away and establishing quickly. Later planting saw the crop emerge in warmer conditions and quickly stack on biomass as a result, but failed to finish in time and was not viable in this season. The replant scenario is seeing a 64% yield drop from the 26th of September planting also failed, so a decision needs to be made much sooner than replanting in early November. It's just definitely not viable to go that late, especially in this last season. So 707 and 714 were the standouts this last season, and it's likely that the release of CSX 3006 soon, with the same sort of growth habit, will be beneficial to the Southern Valleys trying to get high quality cotton in a shorter time. Thanks everyone for listening. If you have any further questions, please jump on to the research update VC meeting we'll hold shortly. There'll be a link sent out to that in the next month or so. In the meantime, if you have any further questions, just feel free to give me a call. And I'd like to point out that this research is supported by New South Wales DPI and the Cotton Research and Development Corporation. Cheers.